back to the help in the end. For a couple days for worse, it's a wonderful hotel ground that I so as all don't forget to this and another on this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if they listen to just isn't enough for you, consider going over to the Patreon, patreon.com/SonicZab, where we upload all kinds of content that we never upload here, like the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, PLEs, where you can so much more content that uses real footage that we just can't post here because it would just get blocked to the copyright. So come check out patreon.com/SonicZab, link in the description, link in the pin comment. You know, all right, folks, let's get started with trying to predict the show a year in advance. All right, so let's get started with the first prediction. This match, let's say I can take it or leave it as to whether or not for a world championship or not, but let's be honest, this match has so much history and so much lore and so much excitement and so much anticipation behind it that just frankly does not need a world championship in order for it to be a grandiose WrestleMania worthy affair. I'm talking about, of course, a Roman Reigns match because, if it's a grandiose WrestleMania worthy affair, there's a very good chance that it's going to involve the tribal chief Roman Reigns. And like I said, sure, this could be for a world championship. Maybe Roman Reigns holds the current world heavyweight championship that he won at WrestleMania 42 all the way through to WrestleMania 33. It would be par for the course for him to hold it for a really long time. He's done enough times already that it wouldn't be out of the realm possibility to hold for the entire year. But again, I can take it or leave it as to whether or not this is for a championship. You might be thinking, oh, he's talking about Roman Reigns versus The Rock. Everyone is predicting Roman Reigns versus The Rock take place at WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia's going to throw so much money at The Rock that he just simply won't be able to say no. Listen, he has so much money. The man is just cake and dough at this moment. I don't know that there's enough money at the point that could really convince him to not hire him for a match at this point. But a match against Seth Rollins, that is still something that I am super ranked. I think I'm more excited for Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania with a good, full WrestleMania build. Something that we haven't really been able to see as of yet because the only time that we got at WrestleMania, it has been in that triple threat environment. But in a singles one-on-one environment, this is absolutely the match to do at WrestleMania at this point. The match has so much history, so much lore. At this point, once we get to WrestleMania 43, would be in 2027, we're looking north of a decade. These guys hating at this point. So yeah, absolutely, before career both get done, we need to ensure that this match happens. And we know what happens when WWE doesn't capitalize on opportunities on matches that should be happening, and then they leave for a future, and things unfortunately don't go when the matches are never able to happen. I don't want that to be the case for Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. I don't want it to be in the future like we did about John Cena versus Randy Orton, John Cena versus Edge at WrestleMania. We need Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins one-on-one at WrestleMania. World title, no world title, I don't care. It can happen this year at WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. Next match, I could also take or leave it if it's for a women's world championship, but for the purposes of this video, I'll say it's going to end up being for a women's world championship. I have Rhea Ripley in this match, whether she's the champion or the challenger. I don't really think it ultimately matters. I have her as champion here because her current, as of the making of this video, has her as the WWE Women's Champion, but I think that this works with her either being the challenger or the champion. I don't really think it matters. I think it's just semantics. There's a lot of options for Rhea Ripley. Like, I look at the crop of current mentors. I could maybe look at an NXT star moving up the ranks. I could potentially go up to a Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, but I always come back to this one person, and we have seen this match enough times before where we know it would be fantastic. In fact, they tried to put this match on a PLE that you weren't really even supposed to watch. You were supposed to just sort of pretend it didn't exist, and they went on there and had like the best match of the entire year. Because when she dances alongside Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, it just makes magic. These two would absolutely put on arguably match of the weekend. We know that they're capable of. They put on the match of the year last year at Evolution, and if they were to begin a grandiose stage, huge stakes on the line, like another women's world championship on the line, and maybe if you could tell a story of betrayal, maybe one of them turns heel on each other after years of them being so lovey-dovey and friendly with each other, it could be an ultimate feud going into WrestleMania. Or maybe you could just tell a tale of conflicted friends trying to figure out who's the best. No matter which way you cut it, at the end of the day, whether they're friends or enemies, I keep on back to this match just simply be amazing. And it's between two of the best women's wrestlers that WWE has right now. I know technically as of the making is really difficult for this match to happen considering one is on Raw, one is on SmackDown, but again, this is a whole year out in advance. Anything can happen. Io could win the Royal Rumble and pick Rhea Ripley, for example. All right, let's stick with the women and do the Women's World Championship. I have Liv Morgan in this match. Again, whether she's the champion or not, I think it's not particularly relevant for the purposes of this video. Again, the render that I have here has her with the Women's World Championship, but I could definitely see her going coast to coast, being a main eventer so long as she can stay healthy in the WWE, because she just continues to get more and more and more popular, and she still has a tremendous runway left in terms of her main event scene, years. Now, when it comes to Liv Morgan, I think in a similar vein to Rhea Ripley, there's just so many women that you can put her up against that would be WrestleMania-worthy matches, but I'm trying to think of something that we haven't seen before, mostly because it's been impossible for us to really see this match, but it is going to be possible come WrestleMania 43 if WWE plays their cards right. And I'm talking about a match with Paige. Paige isn't my favorite, but she is insanely popular, and you put the insanely popular Paige versus the insanely popular Liv Morgan, you might have a match that creates a full-blown internet wrestling community Twitter civil war with stan accounts all over the world bombing each other. This isn't my favorite match here. I think I could come up with more intriguing matches for the Women's World Championship, but I can't help but feel that the fan bases of these two are so big and so loud and so boisterous that I do think that a WrestleMania match is here. It is possible. Now, of course, this is all very much dependent on their ability to stay healthy. We know that Paige has had a long history of injuries. Liv Morgan has had a recent history of injuries. So long as they can both stay healthy and they're both, still uber popular as we get close to WrestleMania, I think this match is a very strong possibility. I just didn't see this coming.
I'm like a cat. Get down from there.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's doubling.
There it is.
See ya.
Great.
Seth going for the stop. Cesaro.
Oh!
Oh.
That was a sneak peek of this week's WrestleMania Match Club, available exclusively over on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week we're looking at the Demon Finn Balor in a Hell in a Cell match against Edge at WrestleMania 39. An underrated match at WrestleMania 37 between Seth Rollins and Cesaro. The fantastic women's triple threat match from last year's WrestleMania 41 between Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair. The talk show / no holds barred match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens in the Night 1 main event of WrestleMania 38. And we're also looking at the Night 1 main event of WrestleMania 41 between Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins, featuring Paul Heyman. You're going to get all of this, plus the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, the PLE reviews, which of course will have the WrestleMania reviews with footage so that you can see exactly what it is that we're talking about, plus a bunch of other series like the currently ongoing NXT TakeOver main event review, where we're watching and ranking every single NXT TakeOver main event, while we're also watching and ranking every single Elimination Chamber match ever. Plus there's all the completed series like watching and ranking every Royal Rumble, Undertaker WrestleMania match, John Cena championship win. There is so much over on the Patreon. Thousands of hours available to you immediately. So go check it out. Again, that's patreon.com/ I'm talking about a career versus hair match involving the Mysterios, Dirty Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio. We know the rumors that Mysterio was supposed to get retired by Gunther at WrestleMania 42, but I think everybody just wants to believe that Rey faked an injury and then decided to come back once Gunther had a match confirmed with Seth Rollins. That way he could avoid getting retired by Gunther so that he could get retired by the person that he actually wants to get retired by, which is his own son, Dominic Mysterio. Which I don't think anybody in the community would blame him if that whole story was true. Again, I'm not saying it's true, but it is pretty funny to think about the fact that Rey went through all of that just to make sure that if he does get a retirement match, it's against his son. Because if I'm being honest with you, the person that should be retiring Rey Mysterio, it really just should be Dominic. It really should not be Gunther. I get it, Gunther's the career killer, but Dominic is the one that is poised to benefit the most from retiring his own father, considering they've had such a long-running storyline. Rey is the one that brought him into the business to begin with. I mean, Rey's the one that brought him into this world, period. And if I do have my way, I would make this a lot more interesting. I would say that this should be a hair versus career match. Dominic shaves his head if he loses. Rey Mysterio retires if he loses. Boom. That right there, the retirement of Rey Mysterio, that is a major, major WrestleMania moment. All right, so this next match entirely hinges on whether WWE actually cares about long-term storytelling and actually wants to pay off a storyline that is still currently ongoing as a mystery as of the making of this video. This is a match that will involve Randy Orton, and you might be wondering, well, what mystery are you talking about here? Because we already found out who was on the phone, and it ended up being Pat frickin' McAfee, but that's not the mystery that I'm talking about. Technically, as of the making of this video, it's not a mystery that technically involves Randy Orton. It's a mystery that involves Jacob Fatu and who kicked Jacob Fatu's teeth out of his mouth and down his throat and left him a bloody mess. Well, we know that Randy Orton has recently brought back the punt, so it was clearly a move that was always within his ability to be able to pull off, and WWE can easily tell the story retroactively if they wanted to, that Randy Orton is the one that took out Jacob Fatu all of those months ago and put Jacob Fatu on the shelf and threatened his career, and we know that Jacob Fatu right now is all about about making a better life for his family. The story could be, hey, you tried to ruin what I built for my family and tried to take food out of my kids' mouths. I mean, I know that was kind of the story with Drew McIntyre, but nonetheless, it could work here if WWE, again, actually wants to execute on some long-term storytelling and tell us who, attacked Jacob Fatu. All of those, I guess at this point, would be more than a year ago. I also look at the fact that both of these guys, right after WrestleMania 42, are in in post-WrestleMania main event programs. So I don't see them both staying in main event programs all the way through to next year's WrestleMania. So I actually did have a bit of a tough time coming up as to what I was going to do with Randy Orton and Jacob Fatu. That's why I kind of had to pivot and lean on that mystery that WWE still hasn't solved. Do I have faith that they'll actually go back to that storyline? Damn near zero faith, but a man can hope. All right, now let's do a match that would just straight up be a banger for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I have Becky Lynch in this match. Here's the thing. She could very easily just be in the main event picture come next year's WrestleMania, but I could also see Becky Lynch just wanting to be a mid-carder moving forward because it maybe just allows her more freedom to not show up to every show and be maybe a quasi part-timer. I don't know. I'm not even saying that she needs to be the Women's Intercontinental Champion throughout the entirety of the year, but I could definitely see a world where Becky Lynch just prefers to swim in the mid-card as opposed to swimming in the main event again. And I want to make the most entertaining match possible. As of the making of this video, these three women have absolutely no ties at all whatsoever. Of course, come WrestleMania season, everything can change. I'm talking about a match between Becky Lynch, Stephanie Vaquer, and you know what? I'll also throw in Sol Ruca, and this could be an amazing women's triple threat match for the IC Championship. I don't care who's champion. I don't care if it's a vacated championship. I don't care if it's for no championship. If you make this a triple threat, I promise you this will absolutely steal the show. This would be an absolutely fantastic match. It's very clear that both Sol Ruca and Stephanie Vaquer are very high in WWE's stock list, in terms of how WWE values them and what WWE can do with them in the long term here. So I definitely see them both being contributors at WrestleMania. Heck, I could see Stephanie and Sol Ruca and Becky Lynch as well, all three of them being in the World Championship picture. But for the purposes of this video, I have them doing this, which I think is just going to be more fun for the fans anyway. All right, I think this next one, I think it's less predicting, and I think it's more wishful thinking. I'm just hoping that WWE can execute on an amazing storyline. Now, I'm not saying that they need to copy the AEW storyline, but hey, the blueprint is there if you wanted to. I'm talking about a match with a deep story involving Tiffany Stratton and none other than the glamour, Diamonds Are Forever, Blake Monroe. These two are a match made in heaven in some capacity. I could see them being a match made in heaven as absolute best friends. I could see them being a match made in heaven in terms of mortal enemies. Heck, they could start as best friends and then come WrestleMania season become mortal enemies. What's cool about the women's division at the moment is that they do have the women's tag titles. They could be best friends for the first little bit, become women's tag champions for a while, hold it, and then come WrestleMania season, the worst part of Blake Monroe comes out and she betrays Tiffany Stratton. We get a nasty blood feud and then it gets paid off at WrestleMania. Yes, it is kind of a retread of Mariah May versus Toni Storm, but whatever, man. I think that's the greatest women's feud of all time. So whatever, man. Just give me the WWE version of it. I doubt it'll be as good, but I'm sure it'll be better than most things that WWE can come up with. Anyone and everyone should want this match, whether it's a WrestleMania or not. That's a totally different story, but this is such a perfect storyline and feud and mix of characters that it would be a crime to not put Tiffany Stratton and Blake Monroe on the same screen at the same time. This should be the easiest slam dunk, the easiest creative decision that WWE has to make all year. Pair these two in some way, shape, or form, and eventually let the fallout happen. And if it happens at WrestleMania, fantastic. One of the things that WWE, especially in the Triple H era, has been really bad at is being able to capitalize on good NXT feuds and bringing them over over to the main roster. I think, like, obviously, like, the most glaring example is WWE's inability to be able to capitalize on Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano, arguably the greatest feud in NXT history, and being unable to even so much as tap into like 0.5% of that on the main roster has always just bewildered fans. So I'm hoping that this time around that WWE is able to capitalize on a really solid NXT feud and maybe even bring it to the biggest stage in a match that really highlights the future of WWE and professional wrestling. I'm talking about a match, again, whether it's for the US title or not, is kind of irrelevant. It absolutely could be for the US title, involving Trick Williams and one of his NXT nemesis in Javon Evans. It's very clear, especially post WrestleMania 42, that WWE is moving towards a newer, younger generation, at the very least starting to create the foundation of that. And I think a great way to continue on the building of that foundation is to make sure to keep these guys hot throughout the entire year, to make sure that these guys are in prominent TV positions, and honestly, to put them in the best positions to have the best possible feuds that they can. And we know that these two can have a fantastic feud based from their NXT days, so to just allow them to do a main roster version of that with more experience under their belt, with more glitz and glamour under them, with a bigger spotlight, it should only be better. But again, WWE has historically been shy about allowing these NXT feuds to flourish on the main roster, and I hope that they see that with these two guys that clearly WWE is already very high on, which was never the case for Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, that this should just be super easy for them to book and just allow to flourish. You'll see that this WrestleMania, from the mid-card to one of the main events, is very heavily focused on making sure that the next generation is starting to be able to take over the WWE, and this is one of those matches that really signifies that. All right, let's have a Gunther match. You got to have a Gunther match at WrestleMania at this point. What I debated was whether or not I wanted to make this a retirement match of some capacity. I literally was thinking of maybe, like, I don't know, maybe Saudi brings back Stone Cold Steve Austin or something, and then we end up doing Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Gunther. How silly would that be? Actually, you know what? Like, I say that, and like I would kind of pop for that. If they were to do Gunther versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, that would be freaking awesome. But I don't see Stone Cold Steve Austin going all the way to Saudi Arabia. Like, the man just doesn't want to leave his ranch. Just let the man hang out with his cats and drink beer. Okay, I don't think that we're gonna get Stone Cold Steve Austin ever again. But hey, maybe in Fantasy Dreamland, WWE will finally give us Ilya Dragunov versus Gunther. Remember what we just talked about allowing great stuff from NXT materialize on the main roster? This is arguably the greatest set of matches that NXT has ever put forth. Gunther, or as his name was, Walter versus Ilya Dragunov, are some of the best sequence of matches that I've ever seen. And this has been a dream match for a lot of the hardcore fans that know what these two are capable of, that WWE has continued to shy away from. And I think it's time that WWE goes completely deep into their bag and allows Gunther to have the best possible match that he can with the best possible opponent that we can find, which is absolutely undeniably Ilya Dragunov. Now, this is an uphill battle because Ilya Dragunov and Gunther are nowhere near on the same rung in terms of how WWE values them. Ilya Dragunov is in an uphill battle to even be featured on weekly TV. Meanwhile, Gunther is a main event star, so we would need to do something to really elevate Ilya Dragunov to be a realistic opponent to Gunther, because as of the making of this video, it's just not possible. It just wouldn't make sense. But we have an entire year to make this work. I promise you, like, if you want to do a fan-friendly match, one that will just immediately elicit a positive reaction from everyone in the community, announce this match and everyone will get behind it. Okay, this is a match where I know everybody's going to get angry with me because people think that this is me telling you what I want to happen. Again, these are predictions of things that I think could happen at WrestleMania. At this point, if you think the match that I'm going to show you is impossible, I'm not the idiot. You are. Have you been watching wrestling recently? Again, seriously, I want you to just get ready to vomit, because you're gonna vomit. You're not gonna like this. I'm talking about a match with Joe Hendry. I can't even say this with a straight face. Good Lord. Teaming up with Mr. Beast to go up against Logan Paul and Bronson Reed. In this scenario, I've kicked Austin Theory out of the Vision, and Bronson Reed is back. Again, have you watched wrestling recently? We just had a flurry of celebrities. We had I Show Speed in a match. We had Lil Yachty taking bumps at WrestleMania. We had Jelly Roll going through tables. Pat McAfee becoming the central focus point of an entire WrestleMania main event. If you genuinely, in your heart of hearts, think that Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, being in a WrestleMania match in Saudi Arabia, of which he already has very strong ties to, making videos there, having a freaking theme park there, again, you are being purposely blissful. You are being just purposefully ignorant, because this is 100% something WWE would do, and you know it, and you just want to get angry with me because I'm saying it out loud. Now, if I do manifest it and this does end up happening, I do feel like I bear a little bit of a responsibility for this happening, for even putting this out into the ether, into the universe. But again, don't get angry with me because I'm telling you what WWE is capable of doing when you have seen with your own eyes what WWE has done. All right, how about we just book an actual match that people have been wanting to see for a long time, a match that's been teased for way too long, a match involving Charlotte Flair, a match that has been teased for, I think at this point now, the north of 2 years at this point. And that's a match against Jade Cargill. Again, we can kind of go back to some of the previous women's matches. Not every single one of the women's matches that I showed you necessarily required a women's world championship. Neither does this one. I could absolutely see this match here being for a women's world championship, just kind of knowing how WWE likes to operate close to WrestleMania. But this is a match that people do want to see. This is, as we have seen now, the perfect type of opponent for a Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill works really well with stronger, bigger opponents, and Charlotte is the prototypical strong, big woman in the roster. You guys can't just continue to stare at each other, right? Like, at some point, you guys are going to have to come to blows. At some point, you guys are going to have a feud. You two are two of the biggest names in the industry right now, two of the biggest names in WWE, and WrestleMania is absolutely the type of stage where you put this type of match. I mean, people were lobbying for this match to be at this year's WrestleMania. Instead, we got Rhea Ripley in what ended up being a very solid match. So I think for next year's WrestleMania, we need to actually run this. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this ends up actually being like a SummerSlam match, but this absolutely has the legs and the star power to be a Mania match. I will continue to predict this until it eventually materializes into being true, okay? Do I think that this has like a realistic chance of happening? I mean, I guess it's not impossible. I guess, Saudi Arabia and WWE do make dreams come true. Damn it, give me the Lucha Brothers versus the Usos. Just find a way, okay? Just find a way. Rey Fenix is doing nothing. I know Penta's cooking right now, and I don't want Penta's momentum to die down, but if it does start to wane, and if Penta starts to lose some of that singles popularity, and you don't want to push Penta as a single star anymore, break in case of emergency, bring out Rey Fenix and put the Lucha Brothers together and have them go up against the Usos and create a tag team dream match, okay? I know that WWE doesn't give a dizzling shits about tag team wrestling. I am frankly, completely, and utterly aware of WWE's lack of interest in this dead division. But how can you not be interested in this, folks? How can you not, even if you're the tag team hating company of all WWE, how can you not realize that this right here, this is money? The people in Saudi Arabia would clamor for this. The people around the world watching WrestleMania would clamor for this. The Usos versus the Lucha Brothers. We need to make sure that this happens at some point. We missed out on the Usos versus Motor City Machine Guns. We missed out on the New Day versus Motor City Machine Guns. We cannot miss out on the Lucha Brothers and the Usos, please. All right, let's get into the men's main event scene. Let's talk about the World Heavyweight Championship. In this timeline, I actually do have Oba Femi winning the World Heavyweight Championship. In fact, in my headcanon, he's winning it at SummerSlam, probably from Roman Reigns, and probably carrying it right through to WrestleMania. And one of the themes of this WrestleMania that I've already kind of hit on is like, hey, this is a Mania where we're really going to establish the next generation of WWE stars, our next main eventers, and I think it's time to do that John Cena Batista type of match at WrestleMania. Like, I think we're ready. Oba Femi versus Braun Breaker World Heavyweight Championship. Wouldn't it be kind of fitting that at back-to-back WrestleManias you have Oba Femi having to go up against yet another Paul Heyman guy? I think it absolutely works here. Again, the comparison that I have here is that like John Cena versus Batista match at WrestleMania that I think they took entirely way too long to actually pull the trigger on. I don't want them to make make the same mistake that they did all of those years ago with that feud. Let's just do it here, folks. They're both on the same brand. Paul Heyman is a connective tissue that can bring in Oba into this feud, and of course, Braun Breaker is a bona fide main eventer already as well. Oba Femi is on his way to win a world championship. This actually has a higher likelihood of happening than you probably think. And then the main event. I really had to rack my brain around this one because I knew I wanted CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, but something tells me that CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes might happen sooner than we're anticipating. It could be a SummerSlam match. Who knows? Maybe it ends up being just like a random B-tier PLE. For goodness sakes, we saw some insane main events getting booked for B-tier PLEs last year. It wouldn't be insane to think that WWE does the same thing at some point throughout, the back portion of 2026 or early 2027, and just put these guys in a random one-on-one main event for the WWE Undisputed Championship. But because this is Saudi, and again, some of you guys might not like this, especially with how everybody hates him right now, but I could see Sami Zayn getting in this. I could see Sami Zayn getting put into this and it being a triple threat between two guys that have, in this scenario, have already had a match with one another, and I think that match happening would be on purpose to make sure that once we get back to WrestleMania season, that people are more open to the idea of making it a triple threat, since we've already seen Punk versus Cody Rhodes at this point. So a triple threat between Punk, Cody Rhodes, and Sami Zayn in the main event of WrestleMania taking place in Saudi Arabia. I mean, like, the crowd would genuinely be insane for this match, and in terms of the talent in this match would genuinely be fantastic. I just know that Sami Zayn, as of the making of this video, he just killed GBM, so he's public enemy numero uno. But it does feel like a lot of us had Sami Zayn going into this year's WrestleMania gunning after a world championship. And I'm not going to pivot from that. I do think that we'll eventually find our way back to Sami Zayn feeling like somebody that you want to root for. Or maybe he's a weasel and sneaks his way in here as a heel. But again, I don't see that being the case in Saudi Arabia. I think he's going to be the big hero of this match. All right, folks, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys very much for watching this video.